Welcome back to GCI. Why don't you tell us your story and how you got to Grassroots Campaigns and how you came back.
Yeah, entirely by happenstance at the outset. I'd gone back to Massachusetts to go to grad school at the University of Massachusetts Boston in 2004. I got back right before the election. I started that September. I was, fairly politically active by then. 2000 election had been sort of my coming of age politically, and then I was in New York City for 9/11, which obviously triggered a whole next dimension there, and the ensuing wars and everything else that Bush led us into. I was politically engaged, but not particularly active at that stage. I was just starting grad school. I was going to a history grad program with intention of going on to become a college professor or high school teacher or the like. And once I got back up to Massachusetts, I needed a part-time job. So I started scouring around. And when I had been in college, I had worked at a record store in the East Village of New York City. And I ended up being the guy that did the books at this record store and like kept our ledger and stuff. I found this position with a political consulting firm. I had majored in political science, so that was a good step. They needed someone to join on their central finance team and help run their books and their day-to-day cash flow for a canvassing operation. And I said, I know how to manage books. I like politics. Let's do this. 20 hours a week. It's perfect. So I applied on a whim there, and I ended up getting hired on to the central office at Grassroots Campaigns. Unbeknownst to me at the time, every single person in the organization came from a canvassing background and an activist background. I did not. So I was kind of on the outside looking in at the get-go there. But I worked in the central office with our recruitment staff in the same bullpen and with some of our sort of national finance folks too. So I got both sides of the perspective on how this organization operated, what we were trying to do, how we were trying to accomplish it. I worked in that job for about a year or so, a little over a year. And then I was moving back down to New York. I had gotten accepted to a PhD program. I knew I was going to go back down there, and I said, I love working here. I love this organization, but I got to go. I'm going down to New York. Is there any way I can keep, working for the central finance department from the road or from remote? And they said no, but we need a director for our New York City office. They're down there fundraising for the Democratic National Committee. This was 2006, kind of an important election year with everything going on with the lingering Iraq engagement and all of the, I don't know, can I swear on this? all of Bush's shenanigans ongoing.
Wilson,
And
that's
they,
not a swear, man.
yeah, no, I'm trying to keep it PG-13 at the
All
very
right.
least. Once I get going on Bush, I get going. But anyway, so I got offered this opportunity to go down and lead our canvas office in New York City, which was terrifying. I had never really canvassed before. I knew of it. I knew what we did and sort of the basic parameters. And I had, done some perfunctory door knocking in New Hampshire for Kerry in '04. But I had never led a team of canvassers or trained anyone else how to do it or anything. I was a little more than a little terrified, but I said, sure, why not? Let's do this. And that was my integration into the actual world of face-to-face voter contact and fundraising and everything else. I was paired with a couple of veteran political canvassers and folks who had run offices before, and that was a really good fit. They taught me how to canvass, and I taught them how to manage an office, and it was a really good yin and yang. And I really found my groove there. And once the 2008 election cycle came on, I bumped up to serve as a regional director for a just massive and awesome voter registration campaign that we ran with MoveOn.org that year. I was the regional director in the Midwest, so I was in Western Pennsylvania and Cleveland, Ohio, and Iowa and Wisconsin and Nevada, kind of randomly in my area as well. But we registered a ton of voters for a whole bunch of months that year. We ran a massive get out the vote operation in conjunction with America Votes and all the partnering IE groups, independent expenditure groups there, NAACP, bunch of unions, all those folks fighting the good fight, and we did it together under that same umbrella of America Votes that year. I stayed in Cleveland for the entirety of the back run to the election that year, and obviously good things happened that November. And then from there, I went on to do, the standard assortment of political campaign stuff. I ran a city council campaign in New York. I did consulting for 2010 coordinated campaign in Pennsylvania, north of Philadelphia, that was working on a couple House races and the Sestack Senate race. And then I moved into Democratic fundraising. I worked for our sister organization, Telefund, for the 2012 cycle as a senior account executive there, raising a ton of money and bringing on a ton of new donors and activists for a bunch of progressive organizations that are all awesome. The Human Rights Campaign, NAACP, Planned Parenthood, and on down. I had about 15, 20 clients during my run there, which was incredible. But then my son was born right before the 2012 elections. Perfect timing. I was not doing anything at the time, nothing important on the radar or anything. But we managed to survive those first few months. And then afterwards, I made the decision, my wife made the decision, we made the decision together that I was going to leave my career and stay at home with my son, raise my family, and be a stay-at-home dad. And my daughter was born a couple years later, and the plan was for me to still be a stay-at-home dad right now, and waiting until my daughter got to kindergarten age, and then magically whisking back in on my white horse to work on the 2020 election as my reintroduction to political life. The events of November 2016 changed that calculus and that timeline. The day after Trump's election, I called up Wes Jones, one of our principals here and one of my former bosses, and I said, Wes, I'm coming back to work. What am I doing for you? And lo and behold, he had a job for me. He had an opportunity for me to fold back into things here, and here I sit today, about a year and change later.
So your kid's almost ready to canvass?
Almost. My son came with me to a training that I went to a few weeks ago. He was a little overwhelmed. He didn't quite know what was going on, but he's starting to get the handle of it. He understands that daddy works in politics and wants to elect good people that are going to fight back against that bad man, Donald Trump. So it's getting there.
We got a few pictures of you when you started.
Okay.
Let's take a look at this. It's a picture. It's titled Obama What?
Yeah.
What's up with this? Is that you, man?
That is me the morning after the 2008 elections in our field office in East Cleveland on East 151st and Kinsman. That was one of our kind of core offices, one of our largest offices in the country. We had 3 offices out of Cleveland that year, and this was far and away the largest kind of staple one, and I worked out of it on the regular. And that was my what phase. That was, we just won an election. Holy shit. That was that phase. That was me on my probably 18th conference call of the week, and it was Wednesday morning. And just feeling groovy, man. We worked with blood, sweat, and tears for 6-8 months to gin up voter rolls and then voter turnout in East Cleveland as a primary focal point for flipping Ohio that year. We had offices open in, I want to say 12 cities in Ohio all told, and I was sort of running the northern part of the state, and a colleague of mine was running the southern part. And we had just finished an incredibly tiring and grueling and incredible campaign of massive turnout. We've registered something like 20 some odd thousand people to vote in the state of Ohio that year. A large portion of them focused in Cleveland and Akron and Youngstown, kind of the post-industrial belt of Ohio. And yeah, the East 151st Street office was kind of my home base of operations. As I said, I was the regional director, so I was kind of traveling around and going to all our different areas and the like. But that was home for me for a good 3-4 months there at the end. And being able to be in Cleveland when Ohio flipped for Obama was, to this day, one of the highlights of my life. We were at an election party with all the America Votes folks, and the NAACP folks started chanting, dropping into "We Shall Overcome" when they announced Ohio had gone to Obama. And I just remember being so overcome with emotion of just power of the moment and power of accomplishment, and sense that we played a real active role in history there, and in reshaping the electoral map and putting the country on a new and exciting path that we had worked really hard to get to. So that was that moment, that in that picture is the supreme confidence and of a winner, of a man in victory.
When I when I had the podcast with Catherine Poindexter,
Yeah.
she was telling me all the stuff she did. I said, so you did some stuff.
Yeah.
And same with you, man. It's impressive. Good for you.
Yeah, it was a hell of an election. It was a good, kind of introduction to leading a large scale campaign like that has such tangible benefit and impact that you can see, that you can feel. And when an election is over and you win by, 3, 4, 5 percentage points, you can feel your contribution to that. That's incredibly satisfying. And that year was a great introduction to that scale for me, for sure.
So I can't figure out if you look older in this picture or younger now.
I was rocking the election beard, man. You'll see that later this year.
Okay. I couldn't figure that out. I was like, hey, Wilson looks younger, man. That's great.
Yeah, I need a little of the Just for Men beard now when I rock it. But
the beard is deceiving, or you're doing something right.
Yeah, there you go.
So the next photo is this 2005. It's called Lynn. And I realized that a commonality amongst all the old historic election photos with you and the team is beer.
Work hard, play hard, man. You gotta have your time together to bond and talk about the situation you find yourself in, and make those connections. That's what bonds a whole office and a whole campaign together, is having those quality times with each other, seeing each other as people, being able to hang out, get along with each other. I think is such a vital component of campaign life, because it's such a it's a shredder if you go about it all business and you try to just go balls to the wall for 13 hours a day for 4 months or whatever. You're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be able to survive. You need those chances to release and hang out and just get away from being in the thick of things for a little while. I've always valued social events and being able to hang out with your staff is a central component about good team building and successful campaign management, for sure. But yeah, no, that Lynn photo, that was in Lynn, the city of sin in Massachusetts. That was the central staff there for Grassroots Campaigns in that time period. There's Steve King in the back there, who's our assistant national
photo here.
Yeah, so Steve's there. He's still at Grassroots Campaigns. He's our assistant national canvas director now, working with Wes Jones on the fundraising canvases. And then he and the woman right to my left there, right in the photo, Liza Hayes, were the two principal recruiters for Grassroots Campaigns in 2005. Suzanne Dyer and Matt Fowler right in there in the middle were the Boston canvas directors at the time.
Where
Dan
are all
Lombardi.
These people now? Do you know where they are?
Honestly, I have no idea. I know Susan's a lawyer now. I don't know about Matt. Liza's a lawyer as well. Carla Pipa on the far right there, she was a regional director at the time. Dan Lombardi was in the finance staff with me. Dave Lanahan on the bottom left there, he actually passed away. He is one of my all-time favorite people. He had gone on from Grassroots Campaigns to be a legislative aide for the New York State Assembly. He was just a brilliant guy, real smart, real sharp, real gregarious, one of the nicest folks I've ever met. He passed away a number of years ago from cancer, which was a real kick in the ass. But this was kind of the central team that, it was a big loss. It was really tough. This was the central team that kind of held the operational glue together in those early days of the the post 2004 elections when we were trying to figure out, all right, we just brought 750,000 new donors on board to the DNC. Now what do we do? So that was us at a party at my apartment there, hanging out and talking about the world.
Hence the blender, because I was about to say anybody who packs a blender for the campaign trail is really prepared.
Hey man, this was my place of residence. That was my home. So it was not a traveling blender at that time.
And then the next one here, New York City Street, 2006.
Yep.
Where are you in this photo?
I am kind of right front and center in the back there. You can see my Boston Red Sox cap tilted to the side there.
What's the story here? Who's in this photo?
Yeah, this was my campaign office. This was after I moved down to New York City. Right to my immediate right in the red shirt there is Hannah Laborie. She was the other rock star that I was paired with at the outset. She's an incredible organizer, an incredible canvasser. She taught me 90% of what I know about having conversations with people face to face and how to do it and how to not be scared about it and how to leave each interaction well and all that. She's an attorney now up in the Sacramento area. And right above me is Julia Mote. She was one of my assistant directors, as was Michelle Bangura, all the way over on the right side of the photo there. So we had a four director staff. I was the CD there. This is a bunch of my field managers and my kind of core rock star canvassers there.
So you were the CD, the canvas director.
The canvas director, yeah, exactly.
How many number two people are there? The AD.
We had three assistant directors: Hannah, Julia, and Michelle, and then it's Aaron and Sabrina and Jenny and Jeff. Those are four of my field managers. Mark Fields is a fifth. And a couple of our other canvassers as well. But that summer, we were the largest office at Grassroots Campaigns. We were working for the Democratic National Committee. And then I actually, with the gentleman in the green shirt there, the two of us were literally the first shift in the history of the ACLU to canvass face-to-face. We did the pilot program of the ACLU that fall as well. And the two of us ran the inaugural shift. It was us in either Seattle or Los Angeles, I don't remember, that had the kind of test canvases for the ACLU that year. And being on the East Coast, we were the first ones to go out and do it. I got the first ever donation to the ACLU in the face-to-face fundraising campaign. And here, 12 years later, we are still rolling deep with them and bringing a ton of new donors and a ton of new activists on board for them each and every day. So that's something that I take a cool amount of pride in. That was a cool time to be able to launch that program. It's still running all these years later. But yeah, that office just kicked ass all year. We were really, really solid fundraisers for the DNC. We had a staff of like 60 to 70 canvassers at the peak of things in the summertime. And just it was a really well-oiled machine at its peak. All three of my assistant directors were just incredible. We all had a real good ownership and buy-in to the senior leadership team of that campaign office. And it was a real transformative year for me, just in terms of my own growth and development as an organizer and figuring things out on the fly. I mean, going into that not having ever canvassed before or managed a canvas staff was a challenging and daunting thing, and the fact that we were able to get our office into such a good shape by the middle of summer and the like was a source of good pride for me.
So that was in 2005, right?
That was 2006, yeah. 2006. So I moved down to New York in the spring of 2006, and I ran that office from like late April, early May through the 2006 election and beyond. And we were doing the fundraising, donor acquisition canvassing for the DNC and the ACLU at the time, and then we also ran a very large phone banking project with Move On that year called Call for Change, and my chief AD there, Hannah Laborie, was really instrumental in that program. Starting about August or early September, we just launched this massive operation to take all that energy in blue cities and in blue areas and call into competitive Senate races. We targeted 6 races that year, and I believe won every single one of them. in swing states. So it was a cool sort of follow up program to the or a precursor program rather to the 2008 voter registration project, where we were able to take just a ton of move-ons, online energy, and shift that into real life in a very tangible way to impact the elections effectively.
So let me say this, Wilson. We, as Grassroots Campaigns, GCI, we are in dozens of cities across the U.S. We've got
Yeah.
probably hundreds of canvassers out
Oh
there
yeah.
canvassing for our two top clients are ACLU and Planned
Hmm.
Parenthood. Not many people know. I mean, you could probably count on one hand, including yourself, the people that know that you are the guy who ran the first canvas for the ACLU. I mean, that's
That's right.
history. That's
That's pretty
history.
good. It's pretty
Um,
good.
so a rhetorical question is, why don't you wear that on your shirt? I'm the guy who I'd have a
I tell
T-shirt.
everybody I can at every opportunity.
Well, it's great historical information. Two, the stories we tell of how grassroots campaigns got started. I always talk about how when Terry McAuliffe, my former governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, when he was
Yeah.
as chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, he was really proud about going around the country, especially in New York City, and seeing canvassers,
Yeah.
our canvassers working for him and the party on the streets of New York City wearing the DNC T-shirts.
Hell yeah.
That was you and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about this a
You're
lot. The
too
fact
humble,
that
man. You're too humble.
that well, I was just gonna say, like, the visibility aspect of canvassing is so powerful when you're just walking down the street every day and you're seeing folks out repping the DNC or whoever it is, and fighting that good fight and having powerful conversations with people, and you can feel their energy and you can feel their commitment. It's such a valuable added thing that canvassing brings to the table, in addition to whatever donors and activists that we're actually able to activate. Just that fact that you have those boots on the ground every single day, and people are seeing that and people are feeling that. It's a powerful component of what we do, to be sure.
And then the final photo here is East Cleveland, 2008.
Yeah, that's the East Cleveland office. So the one where I'm inside putting my victory mug on. This was right outside that office, and this is the staff, man. These are the folks that made it happen. We had an awesome staff of people that were just so dedicated to their community and improving it and getting people to buy in, and feel the impact that they could have by registering to vote, by getting out and casting their ballot. It was just such a cool thing to be a part of, and to feel and to see every day. These were some of our field managers and our core canvassers. There's Melvin Brown, the big dude in the back there. He worked with us for 4 or 5 months or so. A couple of our directors there. Down in the front is Marissa Soniff. She was a rock star CD for us for a couple of years of canvassing projects, and then in 2008 in Ohio, she was in Cleveland from the get-go. Trey Spencer's right there in front of me. Yeah, I mean, this is a cool crew, man. They did a lot of work. This was our largest office in Ohio and largest office in my region, and they just rocked it from start to finish. There, this was
So you were a regional director there?
I was a regional director. Yeah, so I spent, my home base was in Cleveland, but then we had offices in a couple in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania. There were 7 total in Northern Ohio in my region, and then we were in 3 cities in Iowa, a couple cities in Wisconsin. I oversaw our Las Vegas and Reno offices in Nevada, the sort of western end
Nevada.
of the scope. We were briefly in Montana too. It was funny. Montana was in my region, and I'd never been to Montana before. And like 3 days before I was set to make my regional director trip out to visit the folks in Montana, it got moved to somebody else's region, and I never got to go. And I've still never been to Montana.
Well, you know what's interesting? If you look at this photo, I mean, it's the epitome of organizing. Just,
Yeah.
grab a storefront, boom,
Oh
put the
yeah,
sign
the
up.
Kinsman One Stop. Yep, the out of business mom and pop shop that was just sitting there with nothing going on in it, and we turned it into a thriving hotbed of political activism overnight.
Yeah,
And
so it seems like the way in which the the DNC, at least, when Keith Ellison and Tom Perez get together and say, we're not going to be a party of every 4 years that elects a president. We're going to be a party of the people, of the states, of the local city council races to the school board, and we're going to go door to door and be organizers. I look at that picture and I say, if you were to look up in the dictionary political organizing, you would see that out of business storefront where people just come in, activists, and take over and unfold the campaign tables and smash the phones on the table and say, let's go. We're the hard-nosed organizers, let's do it.
That's right.
That's what
absolutely.
that looks like. I mean, this is
and that's exactly what that was. This office was no frills about it. There was literally 2 tables in there that we found at a yard sale down the street, a bunch of phone lines for calling up folks and interviewing folks, and a big corner that had all our T-shirts and clipboards and everything, and that was it.